We live in a world that does not encourage our natural creativity. The schools are meant to train people to work in assembly lines, to follow orders, to memorize facts, and they are not designed to nurture and support our own creativity. And when we suppress our creativity, I think we do ourselves a disservice. At its essence, I believe that we are all creative beings. Creativity is our nature, and more than ever, it's a time to reclaim that creativity because the mindset of an artist can be applied to making society better. It's more than just making art, it's living in a way that is art, and how anyone can use the power of creativity to actualize their highest purpose. So creativity, I feel, at its most essence, it's not just about painting a pretty picture, it's about applying creative problem solving to all facets of society.
What do you think kills creativity or someone's art?
One thing I realized was,
is there a difference, or do you have a definition that you say what creativity is, or what's the difference between creativity and artistry?
creativity, I feel, at its most essence, it's a life force that moves through us. Okay? So I think of it as, take a second to just feel the life force inside of your body. We all have a life force of creation that moves through us and animates us, and I believe that this is an extension of source creation. I think of it like the same way that, a tree will grow from nature, and then it has branches and leaves and fruit that grow from the tree. We grow from nature. We are products of nature, and our art are like the branches and the leaves and the fruit that we create. At its essence, I believe that we are all creative beings. Creativity is our nature, and when we suppress our creativity, I think we do ourselves a disservice. Brené Brown once said that unused creativity is not benign. And what she meant by that is that creativity is our nature, and when we suppress that, it's like suppressing emotions or suppressing, traumas that happen to us. So for me, returning to our own creativity is returning to our nature, and there are so many forms that can take, and everyone's creativity looks different. Everyone's art forms can be different, but it's so important, no matter what form our art takes, to really awaken that energy within ourselves.
Oh, and I feel like, you start off the book with such a profound quote: every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once he grows up, by Pablo Picasso. And just kind of being so moved by, your account, Words Are Vibrations, on IG, and your artistry and how it kind of lands for people. I feel like you have been giving people the playbook and the permission to really step forth into their own inner artist. And I want to know, is there a specific art form that kind of inspires you or motivates you?
So I do a lot of different types of art, but I feel like at my truest being, I'm a poet. And that's really what oriented me when I was young, was going through some of my mom's books and discovering like Edgar Allan Poe and some of the classic poets when I was like 13 years old. And there was something about that language that really spoke to me. I felt like it was, and one quote by Allen Ginsberg, he said that poetry is the only place where you can say in public what is known in private. It's sort of this expression of consciousness in the purest form. So even in my books or in my memes, I feel like what I'm trying to do is apply poetry to different formats. Like when I started making memes, I realized...
Your memes are so good.
Thank you. But I was really trying to apply the mindset of poetry, which is like distilling something down to its essence. And it's actually, memes remind me of the Japanese form of poetry called haiku, which is a form of poetry that's very short and concise, and it only uses 17 syllables to tell a story. So memes are similar because you're working with a very small format, like a one square image on Instagram.
Right.
You're very restricted to the words you can use. So I feel like I'm trying to apply poetry and philosophy to the meme. And even when I write books, even though it's a long form, I'm trying to bring, a poetic essence to it. So I feel like at the deepest core of my being, I'm a poet.
And what do you think kills creativity or someone's art?
Well, I feel like we live in a world that does not encourage our natural creativity. Like if you look at the school system in the world today, it's an artifact that's left over from the age of factories. And the schools are meant to train people to work in assembly lines and to follow orders and to memorize facts. And they are not designed to nurture and support our own creativity. And I honestly feel like that's why the world is in the place that it is now. I feel like in so many ways, our society is facing a dead end. The old ways of working are no longer serving us. So I feel like more than ever, it's a time to reclaim that creativity because that's how we can, it's not just about making art. It's not just about writing poetry. It's about restoring the sovereignty of our own consciousness to be problem solvers and to come up with creative solutions for the problems that we do have. So I feel like the mindset of an artist can be applied to making society better, making a better, more sustainable economy, better political systems. It's not just about painting a pretty picture, it's about applying creative problem solving to all facets of society.
And I love that you bring this up on a from a micro level to a macro level, because I feel like most people kind of just think that it is pretty words and it is speaking from the heart and, your fullest expression. But in that fullest expression, we can actually, shift kind of the bigger picture things in the world. And that is something that we shouldn't be taking for granted. And I love that kind of as I've earmarked so many different pages of your book, but you talk about creativity as being an independent thinker. And I know we are literally given so many data points on a daily basis. And especially if we're scrolling on IG. I was just the other day, my son, I was posting something for work or, you just grab your phone and it's just like subconscious now. And now my son is old enough to go, "Hey, Mama, what are you doing?" And of course I was on Instagram, either replying to a DM or doing something. And I want to see. And now he's at that age where he's so curious. My daughter's too, and she doesn't really care. But it's like, oh, I can be scrolling and there could be all kinds of things popping up on my feed that is also going to, interfere into his subconscious. Maybe not now, maybe later. And I know we are kind of all living on our, on the socials, on the interwebs. How can we not get blinded by all of the glitz and still come back to creativity as an independent thinker?
Sure. Well, one way to look at creativity is the opposite of creativity is reactivity. So we can either react to the things that are happening around us and, always just reacting to circumstances and, being victims to the outside world and, always reacting rather than creating our life from our own, ability to be sovereign, independent thinkers. So for me, when it comes to social media, as an artist and as a creator, I've never seen a more powerful tool than social media, than the internet. But it's also a tool of great distraction and mental clutter and nonsense, So I think it's so important to use social media with intention. One thing that I do, one thing that I teach in my classes is setting a social media intention. And
This is so good.
that applies to what you post and share, but also how you consume, right? So there are so many things that we can use social media for. And I try to use it to bring inspiration and positivity and higher consciousness to people. And I use it like it's like my art studio. We've got these tools to create with. I try to only follow people that inspire me, and I feel like the content creator community, and that can mean so many things. There's so many writers on social media, coaches, teachers. When you curate your feed and be very diligent with who you follow and the information that you consume, and then you bring your own creative energy to that conversation, it really is a game changer for our experience with social media. I feel like every time you open an app, there's a huge conversation that's happening with people all around the world, and they're saying all kinds of things, and they're complaining about this and they're complaining about that. And my question to myself is, what is it that I want to add to this conversation? This is a global town square that we're all meeting at and sharing our ideas and thoughts. And I believe that social media is sacred, because when someone chooses to follow you on social media, they are giving you permission to access their consciousness. And everything you post, I feel, is planting a seed in the consciousness of those who see it. So I think it's so important to be diligent and intentional about what are the seeds that we're planting. What is it when it's our turn to speak in this public conversation? What is it that we want to add? What is our contribution to the conversation? So when you use it with intention and you see it as that sacred portal into people's consciousness, it can be such a powerful tool for healing and transformation.
Well, wow. I mean, I love, and I've never heard it phrased that way, using social media as a sacred portal.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, the reframe is so powerful in itself. And I just recently actually did a full, social media detox. Of course, my amazing team was still posting, but I was completely off and it was maybe about 10 days, 10 days to 2 weeks. But I noticed my energy completely shifted. And even from that, going back online to unfollow just accounts and, just like full randomness of people that I probably haven't spoken to in a decade, or, when we were in high school. It's like, nope, if it's not energetically aligned, it's not, or if I've moved on from certain topics, it's just not going to be in my flow. And just to have that full energetic closure, it was like, oh,
sure,
my feed feels a little bit lighter.
For sure. And when it comes to creativity, creativity is an output. And for an output, you need to have inputs. So everything that we consume, we're inputting data points into our consciousness. So I think of, the mind is like a garden. And it's like, what are we nurturing the soil with? Are we nurturing our consciousness with, water and sunlight and planting the seeds that we want to grow? Or are we just consuming a bunch of random, toxic content, because whatever we consume is going to come out in some way, shape, or form. So I think it's so important to be intentional with what we consume, because that's going to impact what comes out of us.
It's so true. And for, I want to kind of also make a point for all of the content creators out there, because this book is literally for anybody who creates content, whether you are doing it for yourself, whether you are doing it for a business, whether you're doing it for just a full expression of yourself. You couldn't have thought of a better title, The Art of You.
Well, you know what? That was I have to credit the Sounds True team for that title, because I had my original title was Creativity Cheat Codes.
So
that
like, one's good too.
These are the cheat codes for creativity. But they said, this book is really more about just cheat codes for creativity. It's about inner fulfillment and self-actualization. And it's more than just making art. It's living in a way that is art and actualizing your highest purpose. So it's about creativity and making art and making content and, being a creative professional, but it's also about how anyone can use the power of creativity to actualize their highest purpose.
Well, it's huge because it says, I mean, here on this page where, it says, I'm alive to either follow the rules, go to college, get a job, fit in, hide my light, and live safely inside a box, or the box that everyone we checked is remember and actualize my higher purpose by waking up to my inherent creative nature as a living miracle inside a human body. And it's huge because you talk about, there's part one, the yin, the creative being, and then there's also part two, the yang, the creative doing. Can you speak into the differences between both of those?
Sure. Yeah. That's the main premise of the book is the yin and the yang of creativity. And one thing I realized was just pondering creativity is that creativity and making art of any sort, it's a creation ritual. Okay. And it's similar to sex. I think there's a graphic in there that says making art is like making love, and there's a whole list of.
Oh, we're gonna get into that.
Great, but simply though, in biological terms, sex is the integration of the masculine principle and the feminine principle, and together they create new life. And I believe that this is inherent in all of nature. And I'm really influenced by the Tao Te Ching and Taoism, which is where the idea of the yin and the yang come from. So what does the feminine and the masculine principle look like when it comes to art and integrating them? So I call the yin, creative being. And this is the feminine principle of the universe, which is about receptivity. It's about being still and listening. It's about receiving. Because I believe that when I'm writing my best ideas, I don't feel like they're coming from my conscious mind. It's not a problem that I'm solving. It's an insight that I'm receiving. And I think this is what intuition is. Intuition is our portal to literally other dimensions, where we pick up an idea and it's just, and I believe we actually pick up on ideas through our feelings. Like I think that feeling comes before thought. So for example, my creative process starts with me every morning, first of all, meditating just to clear my mind, and then just to sit with my body and feel my emotions, feel my energy, and just try to sense what's trying to come through me. So I'm not acting, I'm not doing, I'm not thinking. I'm really just trying to make myself a vessel for inspiration, to see what's trying to come through me.
To feel first.
And I feel like that opens my portal of intuition. And this is what creative yin is. It's about receiving that inspiration. And I don't try to write until, that the right idea just kind of just pops into my head. And then that's where yang comes in, the yang, the creative doing. This is about action. This is the masculine principle of the universe. It's about, initiating our ideas into action through making things. So this could be things like, as an artist, developing your own style and actually completing projects and editing them and launching them and making an impact in the world with your work. So yin it's very much an inner experience. Nothing's being done, nothing's being made, but you're really preparing your consciousness, which is just as important as all of the doing that happens later. So I really try to separate those phases, and there's a time for yin and there's a time for yang. And I feel like the book is about creative alignment because different people get stuck in different places. Some people might be very connected with their yin, And this could be both men and women, you know, just because one is more of a feminine principle and one is a more masculine principle. We all of us have yin and yang within ourselves, and we all can tap into them at different times. But when we're too much in our yin, we might be walk around being inspired and in flow and be super connected to our intuition, but we might struggle to finish our projects and to launch them. We don't actually produce or launch anything. And if we're too much in our yang and lacking in our yin, this would be like me when I was working in advertising, where it's like productivity on overload.
It's go, go, go.
You're go, 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 and you're being productive and you're doing things and it looks busy. You're busy.
You're busy.
But then if you're not connected with the yin, the work is going to be lacking in purpose and depth and meaning. So this is a principle for life as well as art, is that integration of being and doing, receiving and acting.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's this quote that you have by Walt Whitman, I think I will do nothing for a long time, but listen. Yeah. I mean, it's so good. And you even have, you have this image of, the yin and yang of creativity, the being versus the doing. And I want to kind of read this because for anybody who's watching this on YouTube, for anybody who, first of all, grab the book because it is beyond so colorful and so masterfully designed and created. It's just brilliant. But the being is being curious, giving space to yourself to rest, consuming art, letting your imagination wander, aligning with purpose, cultivating your energy and consciousness. And then the doing is actualizing your ideas, developing your own style and voice, collaborating with others, expanding beyond your comfort zone, showing up consistently, and launching and sharing your work. I feel like a lot of folks in, the Brave Table fam listeners, they're really good at the doing part, but they're coming here either because they need to have that permission to be. Sure. And I see that one of even the exercises in your book in this particular chapter is pick a day to do nothing.
Exactly.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So it's the people that listen to this might be, more prone to being yang centric. And I think that that's a theme in our society in general. There's a whole section about reawakening the yin in our society, because I feel like the yin has been suppressed in our society for, hundreds or thousands of years, where we value, productivity and action above all else. And you can even see that in the economy. Everything is such a mental abstraction. It's like everything is just doing, and you get rewarded for that productivity regardless of, the value that, is being added to the world. So I feel like that people use the word like patriarchy, and I think that's where that comes from. And it's also, it's also harmful to men as well, because we all have yin. So when that yin is suppressed, everyone suffers. So I feel like the first chapter of the book is called The Art of Doing Nothing, because before you can create, when we're living in a society that's on this, hyper productive capitalistic mindset, it's hard just to jump from that to suddenly you're making art. I think you need to really have a cleanse before you can restore your own energy. So, for me, that meant just giving myself time and space to do nothing and just let my imagination wander, just be in nature, and don't force yourself to do anything. Just really let yourself be still. Maybe just read. I used to read at this time in my life. I would read a lot of Mary Oliver, who is a poet who writes about nature, and it's very reflective. And poetry in general is a good thing to read, just to be more contemplative. So like maybe instead of spending time on social media scrolling, and it's like big quick hits of stimulation and dopamine.
So much dopamine.
Take some time just to flip through a book of poetry and don't rush it, but just take your time. There's no hurry. There's no rush.
Well, it's interesting that you say poetry, because I feel like I go to your page when I need to draw inspiration. Well, and it's true. And I'll pull up, some of my favorite kind of images that I've saved just personally. But I think that, we're in this age where we have, a lot of this like long form content. Everyone's kind of sharing their full life stories and just the full diary of their lives, which is great. And yes, we're kind of being taught and fed that that's the way to either build an audience, etc. And I think we're missing the art of the prose, of the actual poetry, of the haiku.
Yes.
And which is why, going back to even quotes, when I was writing my book, very, very different concept of a book, but just picking out those quotes, it was like, oh yeah, because that kind of sets the essence of the tone of what we're trying to convey in very less words. So can you talk about that difference?
Yeah, and it reminds me of the Japanese haiku again, because I'll go more into that. Like, the haiku is a form of poetry that came about in Japan in the 17th century, and again, it's only 17 syllables, so it's a very short poem. The first line is 5 syllables, the second line is 7 syllables, and the third line is 5 syllables. So really, really short. That would have been great for the age of Instagram. But the whole trick with writing a haiku, and what the old haiku masters would say, was that it would take hours of just sitting in nature, observing, in quiet contemplation, before that single scene that was worth writing about would be made known. So it's like, if you want to be clear, if you want to be concise, if you want to be impactful, it takes more time being in that yin to sit with it and to distill it to its essence. And then when you finally speak, it's going to be so much more impactful, right? So it's like thinking before you speak, contemplating before you write, and being so clear with what you want to say and with your intention that you can focus and distill. And this will make your work so much more impactful when you really just take that time to get that inner clarity. And that only comes from inner stillness.
So inner stillness is the key. And then I'm also hearing, to be able to paraphrase what you want to say. So to be able to even journal it out. Yeah. And then to kind of less is more.
Less is more. It takes... it's hard to distill things down. I've been doing it for so long now through poetry.
You were such a genius at it.
Thank you.
I just need to bring something up, because there was one of your most recent shares here, actually. I have it right here. And I would love for you to take us through a process of you being able to bring that artwork online. And of course, the internet's not working right now, so I can't bring it up. Maybe it'll come up. Oh, here it is. Okay, great. So which one is it? Oh gosh. Okay, so here it is. Before an artist can make good art, they must go out and experience life. Before a writer can write, they need something to write about. It's not enough to know facts. You must know feelings, fear and forgiveness, and hate and salvation, and everything in between. Some things you can't learn in books or podcasts. You have to walk through the fire and burn away your bias and illusions. And these are just tiny little memes. Yeah,
that's a graphic in the book too. So that post on Instagram was a handwritten version of something that's in the book.
And so take us through that creative process. Is it, a big chunk of words and then you go through it again?
No, so now, what I do now, because I do remember writing that, because that came through when I was writing the book, and I wanted to write about how important it was for personal experience to inform your art. I'm sure you see this in the coaching world, where there's, so many coaches and so many, you know, and let's just say that some people are more qualified than others. And I think what qualifies you is not necessarily having credentials or having the right, certificates. Those, I'm sure those do help, but it really helps to have that life experience and that earned wisdom. You cannot substitute for earned wisdom.
100%.
I grew up in a very small town
Where?
in Minnesota.
Oh yeah.
And I left, at an early age, and I went out and explored the world, and moved to New York City and did things that were very much out of my comfort zone and risky, and things that my friends and my peers weren't doing. And it wasn't always easy, but it was through that life experience that I tapped into all the just emotions that were that are necessary to create art. So I wanted to express that. And when that came through, and these days, there's one of my favorite writing influences is the poet Allen Ginsberg. And I was reading, sometimes I love to read the writing of my favorite writers, but I also love to read their interviews and to hear what they have to say, so you can learn from their techniques. And someone asked Allen Ginsberg, do you spend much time polishing your poems? In other words, are you writing a bunch of stuff and then editing them down? And he said, no, I don't spend a lot of time polishing my poems. I spend a lot of time polishing my mind. And he's referring to mindfulness, meditation. So my writing process these days is very much like a meditation practice, where I sit there, I have an intention for the kind of thing I want to write, and it's almost like I'm taking dictation from my higher self. I probably wrote that with very little editing, because I waited for the right words to come through, and then I've learned to trust that intuition. So it comes through and I find the right rhythm, and then it comes out almost fully formed because I'm sitting in that stillness. Otherwise, you might, if you don't have that meditation practice and you don't have that, that strong portal of intuition, you might have to write a bunch more and then edit it down. So you can either, you can edit either before or later. You can edit in the ether, in your own consciousness, or you can do a verbal vomit dump and then sort through that and edit it down. But I think for me, it's much more effective to polish my own mind so it comes through in a more clear form.
Okay. So this is huge. And I also want to get into the art of forgetting perfection.
Yes.
Because I feel like for anybody who maybe they're listening to this and they're like, okay, James is saying that I am already an artist. I have a creative process. I might not be doing poetry, but I am expressing myself in a certain way. And maybe I can activate my inner artist, but my inner critic is going to slow me the F down.
Yes.
And it gets in the way.
Yes.
And I hear this as a big reason why people don't brave what they really want in their lives, whether it's the new venture or whether it's a new creative project or whether it's going after some part of their dreams. They tend to play small because of that inner critic.
Yep.
What do you say to that? And what's some advice that you can give?
So my main message in this topic is I learned a lot from jazz music. And what I mean by that is jazz music is inherently a spontaneous art form. And I think at a certain point in both art and in life, you just got to jump in and just dance with the music, right? Like even dancing, look at dancing. You you do not ponder and consider each dance move in advance because you don't have time to. You're letting your body flow with the music. And at first that might be awkward and uncomfortable. But if you're learning a dance move, you need to like practice first. And then you eventually, there's a certain thing called like, you know, muscle memory, where eventually after enough practice, you'll just pick up and it'll be subconscious. And you can just move and improvise and adapt as needed. So I'm all about, you know, practice. But when it's go time, it's about flow. It's about improv. I mean, look at this conversation. You know, podcasts by nature are an improvisational art.
So true.
You know, I used to be so frozen to do podcasts and I had my notes laid out in front of me and I was just coming across rigid and insincere. But the more times I did it, the more I can just flow with it. So that's my advice. And when you're flowing in that spontaneous place, there truly are no mistakes. This is what the jazz musician Miles Davis said. He said, do not fear mistakes. There are none. And he talked about how if he's on stage and he's playing his trumpet, there's no such thing as a wrong note. Because what matters is the note that you follow that with. So for example, he might accidentally hit a note that he did not plan on, but then if he takes that as a new direction and follows that with another new note, suddenly he's in a new direction that was unplanned, but it could be beautiful. So I like to say that mistakes can be portals to unexpected solutions. And again, this is true in both art and life. How many times, I mean, this is the whole premise of your book. You know, that sucked, now what? You know, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
This is a mistake, but you can turn it into a blessing. You can reroute. It's not rejection, it's redirection. So I think that flowing with it, mistakes can actually take you to a destination that you would not have reached otherwise when you trust it and you flow with it.
And I have the perfect graphic for this because, you know, this is, you have this particular graphic where it's forget perfection. The process is more important than the results. Drop expectations, mess it up, have fun, get lost, make things with the careless abandon of a child. Jump in before you're ready. Start now. It's not about being good at creativity. It's about creativity being good for you. Oh,
Absolutely.
That's so juicy. I love it.
You've got to give yourself permission to make mistakes. And sometimes, like one of the exercises in there, it's like, it's about creating bad art intentionally or having bad ideas intentionally just to get it out of your system. Once you've written enough bad stuff, you might actually be ready to write something good.
Oh my gosh. So this reminds me of when I was like, I don't know, I was probably like 5 or 6 years old. And there was a time where I thought I wanted to be like a watercolor, artist. I had those books. Maybe it was like the Disney princesses or something, but it was like, I don't know, Cinderella and Snow White. And I had like the watercolor palette and I was coloring outside the lines.
Yeah.
And both my dad, my Indian dad and my Indian aunt were like, why are you doing that? It's out of the lines. Like it doesn't even go. It's not perfect.
Yeah.
And then I remember it was like that day I made meaning in my head that if it's not within the lines, it's not perfect. So therefore I won't make art unless it's perfect. So then every ballet dance or Indian dance, it was like, nope, not going to miss a note unless you're practicing for perfection. And with every piano recital, it was just like everything, would keep within those parameters.
Sure.
And now I feel like we're having this conversation. My word for the year is expression.
Perfect.
In every way. So Brave Table Fam, I'm also giving you permission to actually suck at something new and grab this book in the process, The Art of You. But I love how in page 119, you have this quote, I knew who I was this morning, but I've changed a few times since then. Lewis Carroll. And basically the chapter is give yourself permission to change.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that is, I feel like the artist is in a constant state of becoming and never arriving.
Mm.
And I think that's just such an important mindset to have for all of us. You know, it's okay to change, to grow, to be a shapeshifter. You know, that's why I love seeing, you know, our friend Sahara doing her DJing and doing her rap album and things like
So
that. She's
good.
just always fearlessly exploring the horizons. And that's my life. Like I would not have written that book. That book in a way it's a collection of all the different identities that I've gone through. You know, whether it's being a young poet or being an advertising professional, to being a Hay House author, you know, to being a meme creator and and now like a creativity coach. I think that I love the metaphor of shedding your worn out skin.
Mm.
And I think that we go through different seasons and cycles in life, and it's okay to embody something and to live it fully and to believe in it and to be something. And it's equally okay when that's no longer in resonance to let it go and to not be afraid to shed your skin and walk away from your old identity, because that's the process of refinement. And with every new identity, you're getting more and more close to your, you know, your true essence. And it doesn't happen on the first round, especially in this day and age, like even in the world, in the career world, you know, it's not like it used to be where people would get a job and stick there for 40 years and just do the same thing again and again and again. Things are changing so rapidly, and, you know, the world is more uncertain than ever. So what worked in the past is not going to work in the future. So we have to allow ourselves to change, to reinvent ourselves, to become somebody new.
Oh, I love that you just said just to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not in alignment, don't be afraid to shed your skin.
Absolutely. It's so hard to do in the moment because we identify with, you know, what we're doing and things, but
And we hold on to it so tight.
yes.
Mm.
But it's liberating, and that's just on the road to self-actualization. You need to let go of all the versions of yourself that no longer serve you. It's an ongoing process.
James, you are such a wise sage, and I feel like this book is just a beautiful masterpiece of how you shine light in the world. I just want to honor you and thank you for this gift. Anybody who is listening to this right now, I want you to go and grab the book, The Art of You, the essential guidebook for reclaiming your creativity. What is the one thing you want readers to walk away after reading this book?
You know what just came through to me is just to fall in love with life again. Quite honestly, because that's what creativity will do, is like when you are actualized in your own purpose and you really can love what you're doing again. Because I think that when we allow ourselves to be creative, and that is our nature, and we can experiment and have fun and take risks and try new things, for me, that means that I'm loving my life and I love what I'm doing. So I want everyone to take away, you know, tips and techniques and insights that will allow them to connect with their own purpose and really, truly fall in love with life again.
So good. All right. Well, as we wrap this part up, you ready to spill the tea on some things?
Let's do it.
All right. And before I do that, where can everybody get the book?
Well, you can find The Art of You on Amazon, on any online bookstore. And if you go to the link in my bio at Words Are Vibrations on Instagram, those all the links for all the online stores are there.
And we'll actually link everything in the show notes as well.
Perfect.
All right. Spill the tea. Words versus photos.
Well, they say a photo says 1,000 words.
You're good.
So I got to go with photos, but I do love words. But, you know, honestly, my whole life, I've been jumping between images and writing. I've been a painter and a poet and like graphic designer and like author. So I love to balance and juxtapose words and images. But I mean, like a meme wouldn't be a meme without that image.
It's true.
Right? So I feel like
you're the king of memes.
Oh.
Like we like our team just follows everything that you put out because it's so fun.
Oh, thank you so much. But like I think images are so much more immersive, so I got to go with images.
Okay. 90s hip hop or jazz?
Oh my goodness. Oh God. I love 90s hip hop, Wu-Tang Clan, Jay-Z, Nas, Biggie, Tupac, these were formative influences in my life. So I love 90s hip hop so much. And my wife jokes that too much of my brain space is taken up by rap lyrics from the 90s.
Yes. Did you draw any of your inspiration for your poetry from 90s hip hop?
Oh, I'm sure. But I got to say that I'm going to go with jazz because jazz was, and it still is in a way, the most formative American art form ever. Like jazz is just, there would be no American culture and rock and roll, any of that without jazz. So I just, I hold jazz in a very high artistic pedestal.
What are you braving currently?
What am I braving? I'm braving promoting a book because honestly though, because I feel very comfortable. I'm an introvert. So I love to be writing and in that quiet zone, solo in my studio, and I'm making things and I'm posting or whatever. But now it's, I got to get out there and start speaking and doing podcasts and really be that more extroverted, promotional part of me. And I love doing it, but it doesn't come as naturally to me. So for me, that is brave to put myself out there in this kind of way, to be honest.
This is good. All right. We'll end with one word that describes the season of life.
So my word for 2024 that I put for myself is composure. And that's just for everything that I do, whether it's just putting myself in the spotlight in a new way, showing up for those in my life, just having composure and just going through it all with, even if things aren't perfect, just to roll with the punches and show up as my best self, regardless of the circumstances.
This was amazing. Thanks for playing.
This is so fun. You're the best, Neeta.
This is awesome. Thanks for being on the Brave Table.
Anytime. Great to sit down and chat with you.
Oh my gosh. You are just a genius. The Art of You, everyone, is out now. Grab it. The Essential Guidebook for Reclaiming Your Creativity. Grab it for a friend, a family member, a colleague, somebody that you want to go deeper and dive in with, because it's better to learn and grow with community, and you have the book to do so. So let's play and get creative, y'all.
Love it. Thank you, Neeta.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.